To create the tail feathers for the Banshee BYPE, we are going to need several parts. We need foam parts, we've got sticker parts, and also there are one or two, or even three or four plastic parts that we need to take into consideration as well. So let's grab the first raft of parts that are required, and that is the horizontal stabilizer, which is Z6 and Z7. Seven. There we go. So the planar side is the underside, and the one with the checkerboard pattern on is the top side of the horizontal stabilizer and elevator. Before we do anything else, we need to stiffen up the elevator, because obviously it's very flexible at the moment, especially in the center, and obviously can twist a bit. We don't want that because our control horn's on one side. We don't want it twisting, which cause problems. Now in your bag here you will have two of similar length, two carbon fiber pieces, and they're actually round in profile, and you should have one other that is actually oblong in profile, and that's the one that you want. So this actually attaches itself to the front edge or leading edge of the elevator. Now it's cut slightly, well certainly on mine, I don't know about yours, but cut on mine is slightly long, but that's fine. We're going to attach it and then trim it. It needs to run the whole length of the leading edge of the elevator, and you use it's 1mm by 0.4 or 0.5 mil. So you actually want the 1mm face to be against the leading edge of the elevator. So we just run a bead of glue down that front edge. Go. And then that carbon fiber can get popped on. And that just stiffens the whole arrangement up so that it's much more effective as an elevator and much less prone to breakage. So we'll just let the glue dry on that. Wipe any excess away now whilst it's still wet. There we go. We'll just leave that to dry off and then we'll trim accordingly. Now on the horizontal stabilizer, we can actually attach one of the hinges. One of these hinges is a central hinge, P8. And you'll notice not only is it cut out, it's got scores in it too. It's got actually 3 scores, and it's also got a slot. The slot is to actually put the control horn into for the elevator, and these scores here are to provide a nice hinge, flexible hinge for the elevator. So that attaches to the underside of this part, and it also attaches centrally to that part as well. So you need it to sit sort of just around about there. Now we're actually, rather than attaching it to this part here, we're going to attach it to the elevator itself. That slot there, you can see, actually just sits over the slot that's already cut into the elevator itself, so you can get things nicely lined up, like so. So let's just add some glue on to the rear side of that. Just pop that into place, making sure that the hinge line is obviously sitting above the carbon fibre strip, because obviously the pivot point is going to be somewhere just in front of that. It's much easier to set it centrally here as well. So leave that to do its thing. And then there are also a couple of hinge stickers too that sit out on the edge of the elevator and horizontal stabilizer, keeping everything in place, and that is S2 and S3. If we just grab those, they have a little bit of pattern on them, and this should provide you with an indication of where they actually sit on the horizontal stabilizer. You can see that I'm just lining it up with the printed pattern, like so, and we'll obviously leave this available when we come and attach the two parts together. So we'll just repeat the process for the other side. There we go. And whilst those bits are drying, if you remember, we haven't removed the slot in the rear of our fuselage at the moment. So, taking a nice sharp blade, we are just going to trim down the scores. I'm just doing this nice and carefully. There we go, so that should now just pop out. Same on the other side. So that should line up nicely with the internal frame on the keel, and obviously line up nicely with the other side too, so that when we slot our horizontal stabilizer in there, it is actually horizontal. If you need to make any adjustment, then obviously you can use the knife to just notice the keel in the center there is a little bit high at the back there, so I'm just going to trim a tiny bit off. Obviously if you've got a file or something like that you can get in there, then even better. And there we go, it seems to have done the trick. So with that removed, we can now turn our attentions to our horizontal stabilizer again. And I'm just going to trim the excess carbon fibre off. Tough stuff. There we go. And now we can attach our elevator to our stabilizer. Now we want to keep around about a ½ mil gap between the two, and that allows for some flexibility when in use. If it's too close, then that's going to restrict its movement. We don't want that. So let's just apply some glue to the other side of our central hinge. Go. And then position it so that we actually transfer glue onto the area that's needed on the horizontal stabilizer. There we go. And then we'll just pull them apart and let those two surfaces dry off for a little while, and then we can bring the whole thing together. Okay, let's put these two pieces together. As I said before, we need a little gap. Let's just position that upwards slightly so it doesn't hinder our positioning. Get that center part right first. Then we can position the outer parts like so. And we've got a nice hinged tail surface. Okay, there's one more thing we can do with this, and that is pop our little control horn in. So which one's it going to be? P9. There we go. So it's a fold over part. So it's got a score down the middle, which should allow it to be folded like so. You can actually just release that score a little bit more by running the knife down the score line, but not going through. So that should fold over. The holes should correspond either side, so you've got a consistent hole all the way through. And all we've got to do is pop some glue on. Before I do that, actually, it's worth just taking a knife and running it across the inside of those holes just to take off any excess plastic that may still be there from the laser cutting. And then apply the glue, Try and avoid those holes. But don't worry if you get stuff over them, because we can always just push a piece of wire through just to make sure that we reopen them. So I put glue on both sides there. I'll just let that go off, and then we'll fold it over and pop it in. Whilst that is drying, we can turn our attention to the vertical stabilizer and rudder. So that's Z9 and Z10. There they are on our lower wing sheet. There we go. Just taking off any excess material that may have been left from taking it out of the sheet. So those two go together like so. And to bring those two together, we have a long hinge, a long sticker hinge, S4. So, and that goes on the left-hand side. If we peel it off, it should be fairly obvious where the hinge is. It's not only marked by a thin grey line, you've also got these indents in the cuts as well, top and bottom. And that should allow you to position quite accurately on the vertical stabilizer. And then I actually find it easier if I just turn over like so, and then bring those together like so. So there we have another hinged system. Now, something interesting here that I haven't done before, but it's worth mentioning. Now we've got this ball tool. It makes it an easy task to evenly go around the edges of both of these flight surfaces and compress the foam at the edge of those surfaces, which reduces the amount of white edge that you get, and also may have an aerodynamic effect. So all I'm doing is just using the ball itself just to roll around the edges of both of these structures, flipping over and doing exactly the same to the other side as well, and it just pinches the foam into a point, so that when you're looking at it face on, that white edge is much reduced, and you have a sort of a thinner lead into the material itself. So hopefully, as I said, that will reduce drag and therefore increase the efficiency of the aircraft. And once again, you can do that to the trailing edge as well. So I'm just going around the rudder here and compressing the material, flipping it over and doing exactly the same, so it's nice and even both sides. What you don't want to do is to slip and push this ball into the material, because that'll cause a dent, which will be unsightly, but obviously it won't prevent it from flying. So there we go. I think I've done enough there on the on the vertical. So I can now concentrate on doing the horizontal. So I wouldn't suggest doing this with anything else but something like a tool like this. I have tried previously doing it with a knife, and that or the knife handle, and that doesn't give a nice even overall effect. And sometimes it can cause the material to even warp, because you tend to compress it on one side more than the other, and compress it unevenly. But with this, you get a very even compression. And it's almost completely removed the white edge from the front of these structures, which is great. Okay, let's just finish off with our horizontal stabilizer and popping on the control horn. So there it is, stuck together. Oh, try again. There we go. And that actually just pops into the slot just there. Should be a click-in fit, which it is. So I'm going to click that out again and just add a little glue to make sure that it is retained in there and does its job. There we go. So there it is, clicked into place, like so. Now we can do the same to the rudder. Now the rudder control horn sits on the other side, so it's on this side here, and that consists of the plastic piece P11, but also P10. Now, actually, I'm not going to attach this just at the moment, and the reason being, I'll put it together, but the reason I'm not going to attach it here is because we have got our sticker that's going to sit over there. We're going to cut a hole through that, and then the control horn will go on over the sticker. So we're going to leave that off the rudder until we've got this structure onto our fuselage. So once again, I'm just going to quickly run the blade over the inside of the material. Of our control horn, just to make sure that there's nothing protruding. Then add a little glue. And we'll just leave that to dry. And put it together shortly. So now let's dry fit our elevator and horizontal stabilizer. So literally it should just slide in like so and center up quite naturally. So I can see the only issue I've got here is that that little sticker gets in the way. It has got a cutout, but the cutout seems to be a little bit too far back. So what I'm going to do is just get a pair of scissors and make sure we've got enough room for that elevator to move. So just removing a little bit more of that sticker. There we go. That's perfect now. Excellent. Well, nothing more for it than to get this attached to the fuselage now. So I'm just going to run a little glue down the center there, and then at angling in to the rear, and similarly just angles in to the center like so, and then some on the leading edge there in the center that will come into contact with the material at the front. So there we go, and then we can eyeball it just to check that it's sitting level. It looks pretty good. There might be a slight twist, so I'm just twisting it slightly. Now that seems to be perfect. Just make sure it's sitting centrally. Yep, that looks central as well. Yep, that's good. So while that's drying off, we'll turn our attention back to our control horn. Just finish this off. So the control horn bonds together like that, and then we have a little plate here with the slot in, and that just pops through and sits on the bottom of the control horn like so. So there you can see how it all comes together. Now I'm not going to glue that yet. I'm going to use the opportunity of gluing that to the rudder to secure it in place with the plate as well. It's a click fit at the moment, so it can be taken off, but it's fairly secure where it is. So I'll just put that to one side. And now for attaching the rudder and horizontal stabilizer. Firstly, I'm going to dry fit just to make sure, and it actually attaches in a rather peculiar way. You literally rotate it into the slot that is made available at the top of the fuselage there. So there we go. See how I did that? So essentially you've got to slip the bottom of the rudder to one side of the fuselage. So that's going to sit, turn it over. So that's going to sit to the side like so as it rotates in. And obviously the little cutout there, you slot that over the material that sits between the two elevators. So that should then be able to rotate, and the tags at the bottom of the vertical stabilizer should slot into place like so. So now to add the glue. So we'll just get it clear. So we're going to add glue to the bottom edge of our vertical stabilizer, where it comes into contact with the fuselage, like so, and also along the side here, where it will come into contact with the slot itself, and also at the bottom there, because that will, I believe that actually touches a surface below once it's in place. And the other thing we'll do is we'll just add a little glue to this side here where the sticker comes into contact, so that if the sticker has lost some of its stick, this will gain it back. So let's go again. There we go. Everything in place. Make sure that's sitting nice and vertically. I'm just going to eyeball it from the back, just to make sure it's sitting where it should. And then just going to leave that for the glue to set. And then we'll come back and put our little control horn in place. Okay. Now we can pop our control horn on, but before we do that, we need to just open up this slot again, because we've just put that sticker over it. So I've just turned the aircraft over. The slot, maybe able to see it there. No, not. Let's bring it closer there. So you can see the slot just there. I'm just going to put the knife through it just to open up. That should go through on the other side. Open up the slot on the sticker side. And then we should be able to pop our control horn in place on the rudder. May take a little more opening up of that slot. Just giving it a little wiggle back and forth. There we go. So that's where the control horn sits for the rudder. So we just pop some glue on that, put it in place, and leave it to dry. There we go. So that concludes the tail assembly for the Banshee BYPE.